Good morning from Chicago, the land of skyscrapers, the magnificent mile, and the city proudly referred to as the second city, and even the third coast. Today's program, Real Estate from Coast to Coast, Investing in Israel and the United States, is presented to give you a better understanding of the similarities and differences in real estate development and lending in the U.S. and in Israel. My name is Steve Lavin, and I am the founding partner at the law firm of Lavin and Gadville. Much of my practice focuses on real estate and financing transactions. In a moment, we will introduce our esteemed guest speakers from Bank Leumi, USA, and from its parent in Israel. On a personal note, I am no stranger to our speakers or Bank Leumi, having served as past chairman of the board in the USA and now serving as director of the immediate parent company in the USA, as well as for the bank entity itself. As a strong advocate for Israel, I have been involved and have supported JNF USA since the beginning of Cheder, saving dimes and affixing it to a card, which those of you that are my generation will remember. I have so many choices of where to invest, just like you do, and my philanthropic dollars are important as to where they're put to use. And frankly, so is my time. So before we begin, I would like to share with you why I am involved in JNF USA. JNF USA has been a nation-building organization for 120 years. Simply put, the development of land and communities is part of the DNA of JNF USA. JNF USA has provided the infrastructure for over 1,000 communities in Israel, built over 250 reservoirs and dams, and thereby increasing Israel's water supply by 15%. JNF has mobilized 50,000 volunteers for farming, provides services annually to over 45,000 people with special needs, and have a mission to bring 500,000 new residents to the Negev and 300,000 to the Galilee region. Our newest initiative, a 2-acre education campus in Beersheba, is visionary and revolutionary. On a personal note, we are building a new expansive state-of-the-art rehabilitation hospital called Adi Negev, a project dear and near to my heart. Today, I am honored to serve as the co-host for our program with Lane Zagorin and Scott Gandel, both of whom serve on the Illinois board for JNF USA and the Real Estate Leadership Cabinet in Chicago. You will hear from them in just a few minutes. Before we dive into the panel discussion, please shift your attention for a short video on JNF USA's amazing work in Israel.
When we are tasked with the impossible, we excel. When people say it can't be done, we do it and more. When we are surrounded by those who seek to do us harm, we choose love. We are Jewish National Fund USA. It began as a dream that one day the Jewish people would return to their homeland. That vision became a reality. This is the land and people of Israel. This is Zionism. This is Jewish National Fund USA. It's time to write the next chapter in the Zionist story. Travel the country and you will see. It is happening. A renaissance in the desert. Coexistence in the Galilee. Ancient traditions in a modern land. Diversity. Inclusion. Employment. This is the land and people of Israel. This is Zionism. This is Jewish National Fund USA. Zionism is starting new communities on barren desert plains. It's growing vegetables where there is no rain. It's solving environmental problems, and it's sharing our expertise with the world. Nothing is easy. At times, our strength and resilience is put to the test. Yet we rise to the challenges and come back even stronger. We know who we are, and we teach it to our children. Whatever comes our way, Zionism ensures that we are never alone. When we remember that we always have each other, nothing can stand in our way. Join us. Let's build a better world together.
Hello, I'm Lane Zagorn, a proud member of the JNF USA Illinois Regional Board, member of Real Estate Leadership Cabinet in Chicago, and a licensed real estate broker with App Properties. Thank you to Steve Lavin and Scott Condell, our event co-chairs, for your leadership and commitment to Jewish National Fund USA and Israel. Thank you to today's speakers, Jeff Stiegelman and Idan Shapira, from Bank Leumi in Chicago and in Israel, for lending your expertise and support to our quest to grow our real estate division. Also, thank you to the many professionals at JNF who have worked so hard to put this program together. Mostly, thank you to all of you who joined today to support JNF USA and learn about the similarities and differences in real estate here and in Israel. As you just heard and saw, today's Jewish National Fund continues to evolve, and we are a force to be reckoned with. We are real estate developers. We have built once barren desert and bare bones cities into bustling metropolises such as Tel Aviv and Beersheba. We are builders, identifying areas in need of housing and infrastructure and providing vital support to develop thriving communities. We are architects, constructing fortified bomb shelters that double as playgrounds and vital medical centers so children and families can live in the periphery and on Israel's borders with peace of mind, knowing safety is within reach during times of crisis. We are investors, growing, building, and creating a brighter future. How did we get here? How did we shift from your grandparents' Jewish National Fund with push ski boxes and tree plantings to the backbone of cities spanning from the Galilee to the Negev? The answer is simple. We don't do projects, we build vision. We continue to dream big, and we don't do it alone. We do it with you. How? Join Jewish National Fund's Real Estate Division today so we can continue to ensure stronger, more prosperous, and secure Israel for today, tomorrow, and generations to come. You can make your gift today by going to jnf.org/donate coast to coast and become part of the fastest growing society within JNF USA.
Thank you, Lane and Steve, and to everyone who has joined us on Zoom today. My name is Scott Gendell, and in addition to being president of Terrico Inc., I'm a committed member of JNF USA's National Board of Directors, where I serve as Vice President of Israel Advocacy on campus. I'm also the inaugural chair of the Real Estate Division in Chicago and the incoming co-chair of the National Real Estate Division, along with Glenn Weiss. We're set to have an immersive and enlightening conversation on real estate, both here and in the United States and in Israel. Theodore Herzl recognized that his dream of a Zionist state needed a strong financial arm. Bank Leumi was founded in 1902, just 1 year after JNF, and has been a driving force in Israel's economic and industrial development for more than a century. Today, Bank Leumi is a leading financial institution with a significant global presence. I'm delighted to welcome and introduce our two panelists, Idan Shapiro of Bank Leumi Israel and Jeff Stiegelman of Bank Leumi USA. Jeff is Bank Leumi's Chicago market president, who has managed the continued growth of the region's business and the expansion of its commercial real estate and commercial and industrial loan practices. Idan Shapiro serves as head of participation and international syndications at Bank Leumi's head office, where he is responsible for real estate finance, construction loans, and income-producing assets both in Israel and overseas. Shapira has been at Bank Leumi for over 20 years, previously serving in the London office as Deputy Chief Business Officer and Deputy Chief Credit Officer, and in Israel as Deputy Manager before being promoted to Department Manager. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being here today. We'll start with Jeff's introductory remarks.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you to JNF for having me, and thank you to all of you for joining us. As Scott said, my name is Jeff Steigelman, and I'm the Market President for Bank Leumi US here in Chicago, and it is great to be here with all of you today. While my colleague Adam will be the one adding much more value to this discussion than I will today, I do appreciate the opportunity to say a few words regarding the bank here in the US, and specifically our real estate practice. Most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with Bank Leumi, but may be less familiar with our deep commercial real estate expertise in all of the markets we serve, including Chicago, New York, Aventura, Florida, and Los Angeles. Currently, our real estate loans of approximately $2 billion make up 30% of our loan portfolio. But more importantly, we recently received approval to take our percentage of the loan portfolio that can be allocated to commercial real estate up to 50%. This is largely driven by a number of factors, including the bank's strong capital levels, the growth we've experienced, the growth we anticipate and desire for 2021 and beyond, and how well our commercial real estate portfolio really held up through the pandemic. In addition, the significant expertise, experience, and support of our parent in Israel has provided the support to really help this growth, as they've been consistently bullish in the long-term commercial real estate prospects here in the U.S. and have a high level of confidence in the team we have in place. What makes us truly unique at Leumi is not only do we have the resources and expertise to support our customers domestically, we also have a parent that can provide value to customers when considering investing and or developing in Israel. They also can be a great internal partner for us on the larger deals we have in the U.S. At this point, again, I appreciate everybody having me today, and I'll turn it over to Don, and he can go in a little bit more about himself and Bank Leumi Israel. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here and to join this today to this wonderful event. And I've prepared a quick presentation about the Israeli real estate market and about the Israeli economy. So I'm happy to share some of my insights. As Scott said, 25 years in the bank and spent the bank in the UK and also in Israel. So let's jump into it. So Israel economy, the economy fundamentals are strong, very strong. We are a small country with a relatively large and developed economy, rapid population growth, price stability, surplus in our current account, adding to that high saving rates, a conservative banking system, and strong, most of our exports are based on high-tech services and goods, non-consumer goods, which really help us during the last global crisis. So fundamentals are very, very strong about the Israel economy. Overall, Israel economy and the housing market have been relatively resilient. And you can see in both graphs, the top one is about the GDP, and the bottom one is about the dwelling price index. And you can see in the last 15 years, it's a similar trend. Economy is growing, and the prices are going up. This slide, it's about the index prices of dwelling. It's about the rate of change. And after temporary slowdown in house price inflation following the outburst of the COVID-19 crisis, housing price growth has accelerated following pent-up demand being released to the market. So as you can see, it's always positive. The last 6-7 years, it's the rate of change is always positive. The next slide, as you can see, it's about new housing sold. And again, after sharp decline in home sales at the beginning of COVID-19 crisis, a pent-up demand has been released, reflecting growing confidence among many unaffected households. As you can see, in the last decade, it's doubled from around 2,000 units per month to more than 4,000 units in recent months. Housing completion versus household formation. Unlike the late 90s, where we had housing oversupply problem, a fact that limits the potential of nowadays we don't have the oversupply, which limits the potential for substantial price declines in a negative scenario. As you can see, household formations is about 55,000 per annum, and housing completion, it's trailing back behind for the last 7 years. And again, housing starts and housing completion. In the near medium term, demand pressure might evolve as demand is likely to stay solid, but housing completions might stay below needs. Israel minimal annual demographic needs are 55,000 units per annum. And as you can see, in the near future, we are not going to meet that demand. And this is my last slide on the residential market in Israel. My next two slides, it's about the office space construction, and a strong recovery in rents and occupancy in the medium terms may face headwinds as supply pressure are projected to evolve in the coming years. And if we look at occupancies rates and rent index, a moderate decrease in rents and in occupancy is projected in the current year as a result of supply pressure and the partial reliance on remote working may sustain after the crisis. My own opinion, because of the tech industry, prices and occupancy will be pushed back again. We've never saw in Israel TV commercials or billboards for tech companies, but tech companies are hiring in Israel like crazy, and they will need grade A, class A office space. So I my own believe that prices and occupation will rise again. My slide, it's about retail space, and on the retail space, we can see a surge in retail space constructions, which started in 2018 and continued to 2020, and it's likely to create supply pressure in coming years in light of faster adoption of online shopping as a result of COVID-19. Thank you.
Before we get into the heart of the matter, tell us about where you were raised and what experiences you had that led you to be at Bank Leumi.
So I was born and raised in Haifa, Israel, of course. I had my first degree in the Technion Institute in Haifa. My second degree was in Bradford University in Tel Aviv, their extension in Tel Aviv. I also had long career in IDF Reserve in the Artillery Corps, and as Scott, as you said, I have nowadays more than 25 years in Bank Leumi. Most of them spent in Israel. I also spent 7 years in the bank in the UK. Uh, all of my career in the bank, it's in the corporate finance and commercial finance space in the bank.
Jeff, give us your background as well.
Yeah, I'm sure, Scott. Thank you. I'm sure it's very different than Don. On a personal level, I'm from and grew up in a small town in southern Illinois, outside of St. Louis. And while I never set out to be a banker, and I'm not sure anybody ever says to themselves, "I want to be a banker when I grow up," my grandfather was a banker and became a president of a small town bank, one branch in southern Illinois. And I remember as a young boy walking around town with him and seeing the appreciation people had for his bank and what he did and how personal it was. And I really think that's what drove me to banking. And fast forward to 1998, and I had an opportunity to join the credit training program for LaSalle Bank. For those of you in Chicago, you probably have fond memories of LaSalle. It was truly a great bank and a great opportunity for me. It was led by banking legend Norm Bobbins, and really was focused on relationships. So between my experience at LaSalle and my grandfather is really the reasons why I am the banker I am today, and why I'm at Leumi, because their values and strategy do align really well with my own.
Idan, do Israelis recognize the significance of Bank Leumi and what it meant to the formation of the modern state and its growth?
If you're asking my kids, I'm not sure they are recognizing that. But definitely, if we fast forward for these days, yes, we all know that Bank Leumi has a vital part of the Zionist movement. And at the beginning of, when after 48, after our independence, Bank Leumi was like the Bank of Israel. It serves as also as the Bank of Israel. So, but nowadays, the banking sector in Israel is really different from the US. In Israel, Bank Leumi and Bank Hapoalim are the two leading banks in Israel. Both of us have 35% market share in all banking segments, whether it's retail banking, corporate banking, commercial banking, investment banking. And because we have 30+% market share in all segments, we are heavily regulated by Bank of Israel. And for that reason, recently we had to sell our credit card business. So yes, Bank Leumi, it's a systemic bank for the Israeli economy, and it's very important for the economy in Israel.
Jeff, what's the split between Israel and the U.S. in terms of capacity and percentage of loans?
Yeah, I think, and I can let Don speak more to on the Israel side, but we're much smaller in the U.S. Total assets are approximately 7.5 billion to 7.7 billion, somewhere in that vicinity. And as I said earlier, real estate here makes up about 30%. So that's around $2 billion of our loan book. That's nationwide here in the U.S. There's a number of that 2 billion, especially on the larger side, that the Israeli bank, our parent, has participated in those loans. So it's nice having that, in-house syndication capability. It provides a very good value to our clients. But I'll let Don maybe speak to the overall exposure of commercial real estate at the Israeli bank, because I believe, depending on the exchange rate or what have you, I think they're around 140 billion-ish in assets.
Idan?
Yes, I don't think that people will be much interested about the numbers. As I said, Bank Leumi, it's a large institution in Israel. We have a AA minus rating of S&P and Fitch A plus rating. And as I said, since we have 30% market share in the Israeli market, we are involved in everything, And my main position in the bank is within the corporate division, within the real estate subdivision of the corporate division, and we are a major player in the Israeli market, and we are using our subsidiaries in the US and in the UK, and we do a lot of real estate finance through our subsidiaries in the US and in the UK through participations. So we are heavily involved in the real estate space, not just in Israel.
Let's get to the crux of the matter. We've even gotten some questions online. Michael Lynch wants to know if a U.S. citizen can own real estate in Israel, and more specifically, what advice, Idan, would you give to U.S. citizens seeking to invest in Israeli real estate?
Okay, I will start with my advice, and since I'm also dealing with U.S. investors and developers, if you want to do business in Israel, you will need patience, and maybe a lot of patience. Planning process can take 2 to 5 years, even if you own a plot of land. Tel Aviv, for example, which is the most exciting city, Tel Aviv, but planning-wise, it's maybe the worst city in Israel. It really can take you 3 to 5 years to get the planning through in Tel Aviv after you had the zoning. So once you had the zoning, it will get you 3 years to get a permit. We are heavily with red tape, and for that you will need patience. If I can give you another advice as investors, if you didn't buy a flat, an apartment, a house in Israel, buy it today. Its prices are going up. There is no reason for that to stop. We can't. We are now post-COVID, and we are almost back to normal, and prices are going up. And if you don't own a place in Israel, I would strongly recommend to buy. And back to your first question about if a U.S. investor can invest directly in Israel, there are no restrictions. You don't need any partner. You can do it directly with a U.S. passport or an Israeli passport, of course, or buy any vehicle, Israel company, you can buy an asset and invest in Israel.
So you can have title, you can own title and hold title to a property in Israel, even if you're a foreigner, you can own title to that real estate.
Yeah, no doubt.
Fantastic. Would you recommend partnering with an Israeli citizen if you're going to do a commercial deal or a retail deal or something of that nature?
I would recommend that. First, we have a language barrier. Everything in Israel is in Hebrew. All Most of contracts are in Hebrew. You can have a construction loan agreement in English with the major banks, but everything is in Hebrew. So language is important, culture is important. I would recommend, but as I said, you can do it by your own. You can set your own company, your own vehicle, and you can trade in Israel. So there aren't any barriers. But like myself, I relocated myself and my family to the UK. It can be hard. It can be hard. So I would recommend to start with a local partner, but it doesn't have to be that.
Elise Berkeley and I want to know, what geographic markets in Israel do you think are the hottest and most favorable for investment?
Okay, so if we are talking about the residential market nowadays, and if we are looking along the coast, so anything from Ashkelon in the south to Haifa in the north, it's for residential. It's hot. Even cities, behind the coast, even definitely cities like Jerusalem, and even cities in the south, definitely Beersheba, and even the small cities in the south are becoming stronger and stronger. And commuting to Tel Aviv and commuting to Beersheba, it's easier. So it's even small cities in the south are good to invest for the residential market. If you are talking about other product, not just residential, logistics, again, extremely, it's super hot. The logistics, there is not enough logistics space in Israel. Uh, Amazon just started their business in Israel, and the likes of Amazon. So logistic, it's a growing segment. And office and retail, as I mentioned, you need to be more cautious. Office in Tel Aviv, I believe, will stay strong. Retail, you need to be cautious in Israel.
So you say
Another,
retail, you need, go ahead.
yeah, and another segment which is interesting to look at, which is rapidly growing, it's the ultra Orthodox communities, and not just in the traditional cities like Bnei Brak or Jerusalem, not just the traditional cities, but also Bet Shemesh and other cities in the south. So the ultra-Orthodox communities needs housing and a lot. And another group which I believe will have strong growth in the next years, it's the Arab populations in the Arab cities. So these two segments, I believe, will even be stronger than the mainstream residential market.
So do you think that there are special needs in terms of construction, unit sizes for either the Arab populations or the Orthodox populations that one would have to account for if they're building for those communities?
Yes, definitely. For the ultra orthodox, they obviously they need large apartments. They can it cannot be high rises because of lifts on Shabbat. So it has to be up to 5, 6 floors max, and so they have special needs, but the main driver is the population growth of that community, and they need housing. We have very limited government housing in Israel. We have no multifamilies, and one of the differences, the big differences between the Israeli market and the U.S. market, it's we don't have multifamilies. It's now starting to grow because government understood that not everybody can own its own apartment. So this multifamily business, it's only starting to grow now. So this is a big difference between the U.S. and the Israeli market.
We've got lots of questions, including from Dion Thomas, former Maccabi Tel Aviv star and European League champion, my son Sam Gandel about retail, and Steve Stender, who wants to know if the tactic used by Zionists to accumulate land throughout Israel in the early 1900s could also be used by foreign entities to purchase land for people who are opposed to Zionism in this century.
I didn't follow your question, so if you can
So,
repeat
so
that.
as the early Zionists bought land in what is now Israel in the early 1900s and the mid-century, could
Yeah.
foreign non-Jews buy up land in Israel and almost have the reverse effect of creating land for non-Jews or people who are opposed to Zionism in Israel?
Hmm. First, I have to say most of the land is owned by the state. Most of the land in Israel is owned by the state, and JNF or Kakal, how we call them in Israel, uh, I consider them like the state. And yes, there are some restrictions of long leases from the states for foreign residents and for foreign citizens. But on a private land, there aren't any restrictions. So basically, anyone anyone can buy a private land in Israel.
So
I hope that.
is there an asset class that as foreign investors you would recommend above others, or are all asset classes, with the exception of my asset class, retail, doing equally well in Israel?
As I said, residential and logistics are super hot. But as you know, in real estate, it's all about location. And for foreign guy, even to buy in a major city like Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, it's always about location and the micro location. We all know that in the same city, in different areas, you can find huge gaps in prices, and for that you will need the local knowledge. So again, residential is super hot, logistic is super hot, and also offices. Although might be some oversupply, but I'm stronger believer of the tech industry in Israel, and these guys need class A offices, and we need that. So I'm strong belief also on the office space in Tel Aviv, Herzliya, Ra'anana, the major tech cities of Israel.
Jeff, do you get a lot of U.S. investors asking questions about investment in Israel and how you can help facilitate that?
Yes, not as much as you would think, but it does come up from time to time, and it's nice having that connection to Don and his team, that we can kind of provide more a consultative sort of resource, versus just looking at a specific transaction or what have you. And we're open to providing that resource. I think that it makes us a little smarter on the front end, and could be a good resource for opportunities for our Israeli parent in the real estate community. So
And
um,
can you help facilitate that? If
yes,
somebody wants to
absolutely.
invest, you can help facilitate that investment in Israel by perhaps putting them together with Israeli partners or something of that nature.
100%. And it again, there we are a bank. There is a whether it's U.S. or Israel, there's a credit process, an underwriting process, and what have you. But it is, as we all know, the earlier the bank, whether it be here in the U.S. or Israel, we can be involved on the front end of the process. It does help us to get more comfortable in a particular project development acquisition, than if it's just kind of brought to us and we're not on that front end. And we're willing to put in the time to do that. We're not so big here in the U.S. that we can't take the time to, maybe there's not a loan for us involved, but we certainly want to add value to our customers. And this is a great way that we can add value, and outside of what a lot of other banks can offer.
Idan, 20 years ago, there were constant red lines for water in Israel, which affected the agricultural industry in Israel as well as other issues. What's the water situation like today, and how has it affected the agricultural industry?
Uh, Although there are no water issues in Israel, in short, we have desiltation plants, few of them in Israel. So there aren't any water issues in Israel. Still, we are all born and raised on the culture that we need to save water, but effectively there aren't any issues with water supply, and we overcome that a decade ago. So we are good. So no issues.
If Israel had to, could it self-sustain with internal agriculture and the water supply it currently has?
Sure, 100%. And now, once we have the gas exploration at offshore the Israeli coast, again, even in terms of energy, Israel is sustainable for the next 2 or 3 decades at least. So again, no, and because of that energy, it also creates our opportunities in water as well.
And Israel is actually exporting its water technology all over the world right now, including to
Yeah,
the Central Valley in California. The last question I want to ask of both of you is, we are passionate Zionists. I assume that everyone on this call feels strongly about the state of Israel and its sustainability. Um, is it a romantic notion for us to say, we'd like to invest in Israel to support the nation state of the Jews? And I guess what I'm asking you is the juice worth the squeeze, if I can borrow an agricultural term? Is the energy and our psychological commitment worth it from a financial perspective?
So I believe that your continuous support is most welcome, definitely. But we are all business people, and it's worth doing business in Israel. Sometimes it's hard, and as I said, you need patience. But definitely, if I'm going jumping back again to the real estate space, and developers in Israel made a lot of money since the global financial crisis uh, more than a decade ago. And the way I see it, for the next 5 years, real estate developers will continue to make money in Israel. So your support is always welcome, but I would recommend to invest for the business, for making money.
Jeff, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I concur with Don's comments. I think you can have both, right? I mean, I think investing in real estate in Israel kind of can provide both of those avenues, right? Where it makes economic and financial sense to do so, but it's also part of something that's much bigger than simply business and finance. So it is unique in that way, and I think it in a lot of ways can have your cake and eat it too. But like Adon said, I think anytime you go into whether it's Israel or any other country and look to invest or develop real estate, I mean that's something that you just want to make sure you have the right partners, right? That the right partners, the right experience, because it's so different. I mean, it's I mean, just look in the U.S. The different permitting process in one city is very different than the other, and that multiplies a great deal when you start looking at investing in different countries. But I do think you can have your cake and eat it too in this case. And I've seen a lot of our customers have done exactly that.
So I want to thank you both. It's been enlightening. I want to know more. I certainly want anybody on this call who has an idea about how to build a golf course and hotel outside of Beersheba. I want you to contact me because that's my quixotic quest, is to have a golf course hotel outside of Beersheba. So if anyone can figure that out, please contact me. And with that, we'll round up our discussion. Thanks again, Idan and Jeff. And now Ellen Spira Hattenbach will take on the rest of the show.
Well, thank you so much to our co-chairs and our esteemed representatives from Bank Leumi. My name, as Scott said, is Ellen Spira Hattenbach, and I serve as the Executive Director for Jewish National Fund USA right here in Illinois. And I'm so proud to be part of this organization that helps the land and people of Israel and is able to connect real estate professionals such as yourselves together. We have a special treat today. JNF USA's Chief Plan Giving Officer, Matt Bernstein, has joined us. Matt's been with JNF for over 30 years. Using real estate as a charitable gift, Matt has worked with donors with strategies that will avoid capital gains taxes, reduce income and estate taxes, and provide for their successors while supporting the Jewish National Fund. Matt, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Ellen. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all. And fascinating discussion. I learned a lot in listening in. So as Ellen said, my name is Matt Bernstein. I've been with the Jewish National Fund for 31 years. I'm the Chief Plan Giving Officer. And the idea here is to present some ideas very briefly on how to use real estate as charitable contributions. Over my tenure, we've shown some solutions and strategies to many donors of the benefits of actually gifting highly appreciated low basis properties for the benefit of themselves, family, and ultimately the Jewish National Fund. We can demonstrate how we could save income taxes, avoid capital gains taxes, many cases earn an income stream from the property you're going to contribute. It helps in estate planning, and we could also, in certain circumstances, provide for heirs. So we help the donor, we help Jewish National Fund, and our campaign. So we think it's a triple win strategy. Donor gets rid of a piece of property they might no longer want to own for various reasons. We increase our campaign, and the purchaser actually gets an opportunity maybe to purchase a property or develop a property that might not have been on the market, simply except for the fact that the gift was made to us. What we do as a matter of course is whatever we receive, we look to sell immediately. So we do our due diligence, we get an appraisal, and we do our best to sell the property as close to the appraisal price as we can. And by and large, we've been really successful. The reasons why people want to contribute real estate are manyfold, but basically what we found are people get tired of being landlords, maintenance, the headaches, and when they go to sell, they're looking at a massive capital gains tax. So it's a tax strategy, it's an income strategy, and it's an estate planning strategy. So the types of gifts that we do, very briefly, you could do an outright gift simply by deeding the property to us. Again, we'll appraise it, sell it close to the appraised price. The donor gets a tax deduction equal to the fair market value, which is the appraised price. We've taken apartment buildings, we've taken vacant land as outright gifts, and for the most part, in every part, it works real well for the donor and works real well for Jewish National Fund. You could do a testamentary gift from your will, transfer on death deed when you pass on, or simply naming Jewish National Fund as a bequest. We can do retained life estates. You love your home, you want to stay in your home, but you'd like to plan for its disposal upon your passing. We can show you how to do a retained life estate, give the house, get your deduction, and at the end, the property will transfer to us. We've also done a lot of work in charitable remainder trusts, and we think we can create magic for our donors when the process works. Simply, you donate the property to a trust. The trust stipulates an income. When the trust ends, whatever remains of the trust comes to the Jewish National Fund for its work. You get tax deduction, you get an income stream, you avoid capital gains taxes, and in the end, you do some estate planning. We had a donor this year give us a building. $8.5 million was the appraised price. She didn't want to deal with it anymore. The cost basis was down to zero. We showed her again. She gave the property. She got the tax deduction of almost $4 million, is receiving income, didn't pay about $2.5 million in capital gains tax. And in the end, she's real happy because she's actually earning more income than the building is thrown off. So in the end, we can show some really good ideas, strategy solutions that work for everyone. We like to call it a win-win. Jewish National Fund wins, the donor wins. Many times we could show the heirs how to receive proceeds from the gift. And all we ask is give us a call. We'll do the work. We'll show you how it's done, and maybe we could be of some benefit to you. So with that, Ellen, thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Matt. And again, thank you to all our guests who joined us this morning. My role is to be here for you. As we grow our real estate division, let me ensure you are investing in the vast and mighty vision of JNF USA and the areas and programs that matter most to you. please join the real estate division and be part of our National Real Estate Directory so that you can do business with like-minded colleagues who believe in a strong and prosperous Israel. From the Windy City, Mag Mile, and Third Coast, thank you all for attending today's virtual event. For more information about joining our Real Estate Society, you can go to jnf.org/realestate or email realestate@jnf.org. To everyone, thank you for being here.
אמרו את זה קודם לפניי, לא משנה. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם.